Welcome everyone to our webinar today, how to turn SEO visibility into revenue. Before we dive in, let me give you a quick rundown of who we are. We're Local IQ. We're an award-winning multi-channel digital marketing agency, and we specialize in SEO, digital PR, PPC, paid social, display, advertising, website design, and so much more. Really, the full mix. And we're part of NewsQuest Media Group, which means companies that work with us also get access to more than 200 trusted brands across the UK. So chances are the local title, local newspaper near you is connected and affiliated with NewsQuest Media Group and Local IQ. So we can, so you're rest assured you're in great hands today. I'm Brandon Griffin. I'm head of B2B marketing for Local IQ. And today we're talking about a challenge a lot of teams are facing right now. You may be investing in SEO, you may be tracking visibility and reporting on traffic, but proving how that connects to pipeline and revenue has become much harder, especially in this world of AI overviews and zero-click search. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And joining me is Richard Dowling, our sales director here at Local IQ, who brings a commercial and a sales perspective to this whole conversation. And the goal of today is really simple, and that is to help you be able to separate SEO visibility that builds awareness from the visibility that actually contributes to inquiries, opportunities, and revenues, your bottom line. So I think Rich is going to be a great voice to help us drive that point home and get some visibility in that area. So Rich, thank you very much. It's always really great to have you on our webinars.
Thanks, Brandon. Yeah, what I'm hoping we can do today is make this as practical as possible for the people that have joined. And we see a lot of businesses know that they want to get visibility online, but really the more important question is whether that visibility is resulting in website traffic, generating the right types of inquiries, and ultimately the right sorts of sales for businesses.
Yeah, that's true. And just a few housekeeping things for everyone who's on the call today. Today's session will be recorded, and so you'll get the recording as well as the slides that we're sharing with you in your email within about 24 hours. And as I go through, you'll see some blogs and other resources on the slides that you'll be able to click through and go through at your leisure once you do receive the slides. And if you have questions as we're going through the content, feel free to go to that same area where you just introduced yourself. We've got some colleagues in the background who are going to try to help answer as many questions as we can. And then Rich and I have a Q&A segment also at the end of today's session, and we'll try to answer, again, as many questions as we can live. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with our first main topic of today, and that is the visibility to revenue gap. Now, for years, SEO reporting has been built around metrics like ranking, clicks, and even user sessions. Now, those still matter, but they don't fully answer the question leadership teams care about most. And this is really what's the activity that's helping us generate pipeline and revenue, and is the visibility, the traffic, the rankings, is it helping to do that? And that gap has become even more obvious recently because of the AI overviews and AI in search changes that is really evolving the landscape of search in general. And in many cases, people still get their answer when they do a search, but fewer of them are landing on our websites.
Exactly that. So one of the things that we hear all the time is we're top of Google. But the real key question that a lot of our sales teams will always ask is, well, top of Google for what? Because just being visible for hundreds of low intent searches, that's very different from being visible for the 20, 30, 40 searches that are actually influencing a buying decision.
Yeah, that's true. To frame the rest of the webinar, really, I think we should start with this. This is the classic funnel, right? SEO visibility typically creates traffic. Traffic leads to engagement, and then once you get people engaged on your website, typically it leads to inquiries, and then those inquiries turn into opportunities. It's that classic funnel, right? That leads to revenue. Now, the problem is this, is that most teams are strong at measuring this front half of the funnel, if you can see that here, but they're much weaker at connecting or what happens later. And that's where the visibility to revenue gap starts to show itself.
If you're not measuring that link towards the back end of the journey, I suppose you can start optimizing your SEO strategy around activity rather than outcomes. So you spend a lot of your time making sure you're very, very visible, but that's still not generating the right kind of sales that the business actually wants.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know, like we mentioned, a lot of the top level metrics that people are reporting on in their business typically tend to be on this side of the funnel, visibility, traffic, etc. But now, just like the internet brought forth a whole new way that you can connect with audiences, AI is presenting a whole new plethora of KPIs and metrics that your business can use to measure and communicate the validity of your performance. And so here's a resource, 5 KPIs to track for AI powered search that you'll be able to click through at your leisure once you get the slide deck. So new metrics that you should really make sure that you're reporting on and tracking for your business. Now, one big reason that it's harder now for businesses to measure their performance and just make sure things are connected is because discovery of your business no longer happens neatly in one place. Search visibility is fragmented across everything you see here: organic listings, AI overviews, business profiles, search engine result pages, and AI tools just in general. And people are starting to find the answers to their questions without ever having to click through. And so that old model that we as marketers used to follow, which was you want to get a ranking on search engine result pages so that someone can click on your website, and then that's going to lead to someone coming to your website. That still exists, but it no longer explains like the full journey that exists. And so that means traffic alone is now even less reliable of a proxy for commercial impact and how that's going to turn into revenue for your business.
I think what we're seeing now in the new AI world is that a drop in traffic doesn't automatically mean a drop in sales performance. So quite often what we see is some traffic has disappeared because AI, as you say, Brandon, is answering those lower intent questions directly. So the more important question now is whether you're losing the traffic that really mattered commercially.
True. And a good example of how visibility is changing is the local three map pack that sometimes shows on Google search results. And so if anyone is watching the webinar, you want to learn more about what the local three pack is and other visibility changes, this is a good blog that you should take a look at on our website. You can click through and read more again once you receive the slide deck. Now, Richard raised a really useful example that I think is worth mentioning here while we were planning this conversation with you all, and that is a query like someone going to Google and typing in like benefits of triple glazing. If you were to go to search in the past, that kind of search might have sent someone to like a website article, and then you click through, and then there was a good chance that that person would eventually land on your website. But today, that's not the case. Today, with AI overviews, as I hope everyone on this session has had some type of exposure to, if you were to type in benefits of triple glazing, the chances are Bing, Google AI overviews, they're going to give you the answer that you're looking for right at the top. And so that means some informational traffic that used to reach websites now stop before they even click onto the results. But the key takeaway here is isn't simply that traffic might be down, you might be getting less traffic. It's that some of that lost traffic may never have actually been especially commercial in the first place, as Rich was alluding to.
Exactly that. So it's hard to quantify, right? And, losing unqualified traffic, it's not automatically a disaster. And we're going to talk in a little while around why it could still be an impact and something for people to be concerned around. The real danger is when businesses are only looking at total traffic. So if that was your key metric before the new AI world, that's very difficult now to know whether your lost traffic is influencing revenue, or whether you're still maintaining that high intent visibility or not.
Yeah, that's true. And I think to make it even more practical, we can do that. We can break search into four buckets rather than the usual three, which will be informational, navigational, commercial, and transactional. Rich, can you take us through what those are? Because this is really where the conversation shifts from general visibility to the kinds of searches that influence inquiries, sales, conversations, and revenue.
Yeah, I'll do my best. So um, this is more impactful the longer your customer's journey is, their decision making journey. So the first set of, I suppose the first group of keywords are those informational keywords, the things that users on Google tend to search for right at the beginning of their purchasing decision. So a good example of that would be the keyword you used before, Brandon. What are the benefits of triple glazing? Is triple glazing really worth it? What are the energy efficiency gains through triple glazing? Long tailed, usually question led. Now, the commercial value of those directly is pretty low. The real benefit of them, both in the old world and really in the new world of AI, is there's a brand awareness value. And another type of keyword is a navigational keyword. So the idea here would really be that you've done a load of work around informational keywords, and you've been the trusted answerer of many questions when people are at the start of their journey. And what you hope then is when they're closer to a buying decision, rather than do more searches on Google, they search for your brand. So they're the navigational keywords that we're talking around there. So the big benefit, as I say, of those informational keywords and that early brand awareness activity is it stimulates people to become aware of and trust in your brand. So when they're ready to buy, you cut out the competition, basically, those comparison type keywords, and people jump straight to you to come and make that inquiry. So there's a real high commercial value there. But in the new AI world, it's very tricky to use informational keywords to drive navigational buying intent, because people are no longer landing on your website. Still important, those informational keywords. You've got an opportunity there to, I suppose, be the answer of those questions and control the narrative. So they're still important, but they serve a different purpose than they used to pre-AI world. The third type of keyword that we're going to talk about today is commercial keywords. So this is where people have got higher intent, that they're searching for companies near me. And you tend to see a lot of service plus location type searches in here. I'm looking in the chat. Who've we got? Lakes Hotel and Spa. So, it might be spa break in Windermere. Those sorts of keywords are your commercial ones. And then the final set of keywords are the transactional keywords. So that's where someone is ready to do something now. A little further down the funnel than the commercial keywords. They've usually got things like quote, cost, those sorts of things in. They're the highest ones. We tend to see that PPC is where people are spending PPC budget. They'll look at commercial and transactional keywords. The whole journey is SEO, even in the new AI world.
Yeah, thanks for that, Rich. I think you summarized all four of those buckets really well. And that's a really useful distinction too, because it gives everyone a much better way to like just evaluate performance rather than just saying, oh yeah, we're ranking for lots of keywords, but with this format, you can put those keywords into the different buckets and really assess, okay, where is the value what is the value and where is the value that you're associating with your placement for various terms. And there's another resource here for everyone, as again at your leisure, that talks about zero-click search, what it is, and how it's impacting businesses. So thanks for that recap, Rich, on just the four intents of search that people typically are conducting. Now, one useful exercise for everyone on the call is to map the keywords that you're ranking for back to landing pages and funnel stages. Now, Rich, when we take a look at this, can you talk to us about this one? Because this is where SEO planning kind of starts to become more commercial and much more practical.
Yeah, so this is where I'd encourage teams to get, I suppose, quite deliberate with the planning. Not all keywords are equal. So it's not just enough to say we rank for lots of things. The better question to be asking your marketers in your businesses are, um, what searches are we showing up for? Where do those searches sit in the buying journey? And which are actually helping us towards getting somebody to make an inquiry. Now, a simple way to do that would be to map queries into stages, like you can see on screen: awareness, consideration, and decision. So the awareness searches, these are the early stage terms, the what is, the benefits of, how does this help me? And those informational keywords that we talked about earlier. The consideration searches, that's when someone's evaluating their options. So they're moving into the middle stage of their journey. So that'd be best double glazing companies and providers of, costs associated with, even looking for things like reviews or comparisons, and that's kind of mid-stage journey. And then at the back end, you've got the decision stage, and these are the searches that people are typing into search engines when they're much closer to making an inquiry and making a decision to act. So they usually have phrases like quote, demo, again, service plus location kind of intersects there, some comparison keywords. So I'd be putting them into those camps and saying how much of our traffic is coming from those sorts of keywords.
Yeah. No, again, a good framework to be able to just kind of categorize what we're seeing in the reports and then being able to map it back to where people are on their buyer's journey. So now in terms of how your business can actually find out what are these searches that people are searching for that's landing them on our site. One of the easiest places to start is Google Search Console. So write that down if you haven't used it. That's a free tool that you should definitely incorporate. It's called Google Search Console. Here's a screenshot of what it looks like. I can't do like a live demo, but if you set up Google Search Console and you log in, you'll come to a page like this. And when you go to the performance reports area, you can toggle on this view between queries and pages. Now, the queries view, which is what's here, and this screenshot shows you the actual terms that people are typing into Google. And then the pages view, if you were to click onto that, it shows you the actual URLs of your website that are earning impressions and clicks in like Google search results. Now, the useful part is that you can use these two together, the queries and the pages, to spot the phrases that look informational, the phrases that look commercial, the phrases that look decision led, like Rich just talked about in the previous slide. And then you can click over to the pages view to see which page is ranking for which particular queries or search terms. Or you can do it the other way around, start with the key service page in the pages view and then apply a filter so that you can see which queries are driving visibility to that particular page. And so this is a really practical way to understand whether a page on your website is actually attracting the right type of intent. And so if you have a page that is meant for people to be going to it, and then once they're on this page, they should be adding to their cart, or they should be submitting a quote. If that's what you intend that page to do, but you find out that people are coming there just to find out what window glazing is, then you may have a page that's mismatched with the intent that you're actually intending for. So I think this is a helpful resource. Another one that a lot of people use too is GA4, Google Analytics 4. You can tie that with Google Search Console and kind of get almost like a 360 view in terms of understanding which pages are getting the most organic traffic, which pages are leading to conversions like form fills or phone calls or demos, if that's what your business offers. Because where SEO starts to become a revenue discussion is in those areas when people start to convert and do those things that really make money for your business. Is that pretty accurate, Rich?
Yeah, I think so. I think the in summary, what we're encouraging people to do is think very carefully and ask the question of yourselves, what do we want to rank for and what should we rank for if we want to make a real commercial impact on our business? Which of the keywords carry the most value if that's the aim?
Yeah, yeah, good deal. Well, thanks for that. Well, next, and again, I know we're going over things fast, but if you have questions, go ahead and put them into that chat and Q&A area, and we'll do our best to answer as many as we can in the background and as we have our Q&A segment at the end. So next, if you want to diagnose your own visibility to revenue gap, we think there are essentially four key questions that you should ask. The first question is, has organic traffic gone up or down since AI overviews has become more prominent? And to answer that, most teams can start in GA4, Google Analytics 4, and compare organic sessions, users, and conversions over time. If you aren't familiar with GA4, we have a whole webinar talking about the key reports that your business will probably find valuable on our website. Again, you'll be able to click through in this slide once you receive it. The second question is, has pipeline or revenue from organic traffic followed in the same pattern? So as traffic has either gone up or down with the onset of Google AI, have you seen the same type of pattern in your revenue from that source of traffic, from organic sources? So that's where GA4 can help with you seeing those on-site conversions. But to understand pipeline, to understand sales and revenue properly, sometimes you might need to look at your business's CRM as well. So whether that's HubSpot, a Salesforce, or a tool like that, wherever your team tracks leads and close business, you want to look at that platform along with GA4 and Google Search Console to try to give yourself that picture of what's truly happening as it relates to revenue. The third question is, where are you gaining or losing visibility? Are you gaining or losing visibility in your informational keyword set, your navigational keyword set, commercial or branded? So, trying to narrow it down through those lenses and that framework that Rich shared with us earlier. And that's where Google Search Console is going to be especially useful, because it'll show you the queries you're appearing for, the clicks, the impressions, and it even shows you like the average position. And so that will help your team see what the themes are, or which intent buckets are moving up or down. And then the fourth and final question is, how are you measuring the link today? If you're measuring it at all, right? Because for a lot of teams, the answer is the data is spread across multiple places. You probably have data in Search Console for visibility. You're looking at Google Analytics 4, GA4 for behavior and conversion information. And then you probably have some data in your CRM, whether it's HubSpot, Salesforce, and that's giving you the information about pipeline and revenue. And so the real challenge is bringing all of those pieces of data together to tell one story. And so I think these are the four key questions that will help businesses diagnose where they are in terms of visibility to revenue. Anything else you would add there, Rich?
I think if you're a business owner and you've got a marketer in your business, or if you're working with an agency, these are four great questions to go and ask them. The first two questions here, quite easy to get the answers to, like you say, using GA4, similar tools. Third and fourth questions are a little trickier, and I'd say that final question, I'd encourage businesses to be brutally honest with themselves around the answer to that. A lot of teams can, as I say, answer the first one as traffic going up and down. That's easy. So the practical question isn't just what tools have we got that can answer these surface level questions, but are those tools connected in a way that can help us make decisions? You answer those four questions, it can start to help you make some decisions around what you do moving forward. So if you have that link today, start simple. Use Search Console to identify the queries and pages gaining and gaining visibility, or where you've lost visibility. Use GA4 to see whether those pages are driving conversions, and then compare that with your CRM data if you're using a CRM like HubSpot or Salesforce, to try and see Have those leads actually become opportunities or sales? So that alone will give you a really clear picture of whether SEO is having, I suppose, a commercial impact or whether it's just creating activity. But as I say, if you've got people on the call who are working with agencies, I've got marketing managers in the business, they're four really good questions to ask to, I suppose, look under the bonnet and try and work out what's going on.
Yeah, no, good points. Thanks for adding that, Rich. I think we tried to bring forward a case study, something that we saw with some clients, and I want to just talk through this really quickly because I think this will help illustrate everything that we're talking about, and it also give you a visual reference as you take the information from this webinar and go and have conversations with your teams and look across different systems. And so, for this particular client, this is their view of Google Search Console. You see their traffic across 2024 to 2025. And I just want to call out a couple of points here. So we've got their clicks and then we've got the impressions. This is essentially the purple is how many times this business is showing up as people are searching for things related to their business on Google search engine and things like that. And then the blue line would be how many people are actually clicking through to their website when they appear in those search results. This is like a 2-year time span. So a couple of points here. You've got this point of time, which is essentially pre-AI, right? Before AI came in. And you could see typically the trend during this time period was that they would get the amount of clicks that they would receive was significantly more in proportion to the impressions. And so you show up more visibility meant more clicks. That was the trend. But here around August, September 2024, that was when AI overview started to be infused in search, and that's when things started to shake up. And the trend started to change. And so it was no longer the more you showed up, the more clicks you got, because here with this particular business, they were starting to show up even more as AI started to come into search, but they were starting to get fewer clicks. And so it wasn't as proportionate as the previous trends. But so you would think that that would probably, mean just be doomed, right? The company's doomed. We aren't showing up. We're showing up, but we aren't getting clicks. We're losing traffic. Our business is tanking. But when they actually looked at some of those conversion metrics, right, they went beyond the impressions, clicks, and they went to go and see, well, how many phone calls are we actually receiving from people? How many times are people contacting us using the form on our website? And when they looked at those metrics, they saw that it was actually a 71% year on year increase in the amount of phone calls that they were receiving, or a 91% increase year over year in terms of how many inquiry forms were being submitted onto their website. Year over year change, even though they were getting less traffic seemingly from organic search. And so that's where we're talking about how you can take these metrics, but you've got to start incorporating other second half of the funnel type metrics, looking at those inquiries and those revenue points into your reporting to get a full story and understand where the gap is and how big of a gap your business has. So that top half, like I mentioned, is Google Search Console. Uh, you can essentially sign up for that for free and start to get some data for your website. And this bottom chart is some data from that client's CRM tool. So it could be HubSpot, it could be Salesforce. This data down here is the data that says, how many people are calling the business, submitting forms that lead to marketing qualified leads. And I just want to bring some points up here. So if you recall, the first part of this particular time period, it was at a time where more impressions meant more clicks. And down here, you'll see for this particular month and period, they only got like 7 and 13 MQLs that came through to their business, even though this was essentially like prime time for their business. More impressions, more clicks. But after AI overviews, here's what happened. They started to show up more, but get less click throughs to their website. But what happened when they actually drilled down and looked at like the MQLs and those sales conversions from their CRM, as opposed to what it was like before, they see, essentially a dramatic difference, a dramatic increase. They are essentially getting like more than double what they were getting before. So just showing this, I don't want to go too deep into it, but I just want to hopefully have articulated the point as to why it's important for you to look at these metrics that are directly tied to, sales conversions in addition to you may be showing up or not showing up in search.
I think for me that the commercial lens here, I suppose, is that in a pre-AI world, there was a linear journey that you could map, right? You could say, well, a lot of impressions, if I'm seeing a lot in Google, that's going to generate a lot of clicks. And if I get a lot of clicks, I'm going to get a lot of inquiries and I'm going to get a lot of sales. It's quite easy to map that out. Whereas in a post-AI world, I suppose what we're advocating here, Brandon, is clicks is still a metric, but it's probably reduced in importance because it's not quite that same linear journey now. So what people should obsess more about is A, total impressions, visibility in search. Care more about that, care a little bit less about the clicks, but care even more about the percentage of your traffic on your website that actually generates inquiry. So just reweighting the importance, I suppose, of those metrics.
Right, right, right. And we aren't forgetting about those metrics, but like you mentioned, it's reweighting those metrics and then also bringing more information to the table that's going to help inform your strategy, right? Because that's what you want. You want to make sure your SEO strategy, your digital marketing strategy is informed and optimized by the data that makes sense for your business. So with that, let's go ahead to talk about the strategy and how you can begin to action everything that we're talking about today from how to go from SEO visibility to revenue. Now, the first part of your strategy, our suggestion is this, and that is to protect and grow the visibility that sits closest to revenue. And so that means when you're looking at your website, looking at your content, you want to prioritize the pages and the queries that are most tied to commercial intent. And those are your service pages, pages that talk about your pricing, comparison pages, and even those pages that are associated with the high intent local terms. So, like we talked about, window glazing Manchester or window glazing near me. Those pages that are associated with those types of terms are the ones that you want to begin to prioritize. And then once visitors land there on your website, the conversion paths matter. Getting them to your website is one thing, but then getting them to take certain actions and going down that funnel is another thing. And so that's where you want to have clear CTAs, better forms, stronger offers from your business, and then better follow-up as well, because all those things will help turn visibility into inquiries. So that's part one. Rich, is there anything there that you would add?
Yeah, if a page on your website is linked in some way to a quote request, a demo, something that influences an inquiry or a deal, that's where I'd want my team focusing first. Those are the assets that are going to have a direct impact on pipeline. So how can you get the most revenue to those and get them converting at the best rate?
Yeah, thanks for adding that. I would agree. The second part is smarter top of funnel visibility. That's really the next area you should focus in this part two of the strategy. And here we shouldn't assume that every informational click can or should be won back in the same way, because some of that traffic is now being absorbed by AI experiences. And so instead, you want to focus on informational topics that still influence like later stage searches. You want to focus on branded domain. This is when users are searching for your company name because they know it, and so they're including your company name in this in the search query that they're doing. And you just want to make sure that your brand shows up where buyers are forming even their early impressions. So all of these things matter. That top of funnel visibility still.
I think it's a really important point. So, what we're not absolutely not saying here is don't focus on those keywords at the top of the funnel. They have a different value now. Branding really matters. In fact, it probably matters more than ever. So the idea is that if people see your brand early in that consideration process, like we said before, um, you've got a moment in time, haven't you? They're more likely to pick you later when they're running those higher intent searches because they've become exposed to and they're familiar with your brand.
Yeah, good point there, Rich. So hopefully the main takeaway for everyone that's watching is that visibility still matters. You know, you want to show up in the search, especially in this day and age of AI in search, but these days, um, it only becomes truly valuable when you connect it to queries, when you connect it to pipeline and revenue. And in order to be able to do that, you probably have to go beyond your marketing team. You're going to have to talk to some people in sales. You're going to have to connect your systems, like Google Search Console, Google Analytics, to your CRM tools like HubSpot, Salesforce, tie it into like the local IQ, client center, those types of tools that give you access to how your campaigns are performing. And all those data points will help you get like that full picture. Now, I'm going to put this link into the chat, because I think this is another thing that people can do. We like to make our webinars actionable, right? Giving you things that you can do and take back like today to your team. And so on our website, we have what we call a free SEO audit tool. And if you go to it, you put in your website, and very quickly, it'll show you where the gaps are in your SEO strategy, because it's going to check your website across like 100 different checkpoints, as relates to SEO, and give your website a grade. But we've also incorporated some new AI features and elements. So it'll tell you and give you a little bit of a glimpse as to how your website is faring as well in AI and search. And so it's going to evaluate whether or not your website has the appropriate files that communicate with the AI bots, and it's going to give you a score to let you know, if you're coming up or not as source information in some of these AI results as well. So helpful information. You can do it now as we move to Q&A, and answer a few questions in the background and just see what score it gives for your website. It's a really good tool. So want to encourage you to do that. And while you're doing that, if you have questions, go ahead and put that into the chat. And then Rich and I are going to answer a couple. While I'm waiting for some of to come through, Rich, some people sent in some questions earlier as they were registering. And I think this one is relevant. I know we talked about a lot today, and we even broke it down into like a two-part strategy. But what would you say would be the top three things you would recommend a business do if they wanted to get started in trying to close the visibility to revenue gap for their business, and you know they only had a limited resource? What would like the top three or four things you would suggest them to do be?
First, I'd say audit your website and figure out has traffic changed since AI overviews in particular. How has that fragmentation of search behavior affected you? Second, I'd say map that traffic and the keywords back to actual inquiries, like the demonstration you gave before. So number one, has traffic changed? Number two, has that affected inquiries? Can you track that back? Can you use GA to do that? And then thirdly, finally, identify which keywords you think are going to have the biggest impact on inquiries and sales. I suppose if I was going to put number four in there, work out how to rank for them.
Yeah, no, good points there. And I would even probably add uh, to that, make sure that you have Google Search Console and Google Analytics installed on your websites, because even having connection to those tools and platforms will be really helpful too when you start to work with a company like Local IQ, because that will help supplement the reporting and the data that we give to you as well, so you can begin to paint that picture. So even before you start working with us, like you should try to implement those tools, Google Search Console and Analytics on your website, so that way you can start tracking data and get a good assessment as to like where your business is generating results right now, even before you start to implement a strategy. So Rich, here's another quick question. We've talked a little bit about like paid search, PPC, and SEO. How do those things work together, SEO and PPC, from a budget perspective?
Um, the first thing to say is, that this isn't an and/or. You can deploy these two strategies together, and there's a lot of benefits doing that. You'll see a pretty significant incremental uplift in clicks and traffic and inquiries if you're running both, for the simple reason that you're dominating more of the real estate in Google. You'll cover more space. Um, I suppose SEO, your time to value there's a little longer than PPC. PPC can give you a not quite immediate, but certainly a much quicker shot in the arm for inquiries. Over time, I think for a lot of businesses, what you're going to see with SEO is, the longer time to value, as I say, but um, the returns there are going to be far healthier, and it's going to become easier to justify time, budget when it comes to investing in SEO.
Good deal. Thanks for that. And that makes sense too. And that both they don't have to be independent and you can operate, support both of them at the same time because they have different purposes, but they all are working towards that same, trying to help the business generate revenue, looking at the bottom line. So good points that you've called out there. I think that's going to be just about all we have time for today. I want to thank everybody who has joined us today. If you can, I've put into on your screen a survey that tells us, if you found today helpful, and we do hope you did find today helpful. On the screen here are some additional webinars and resources that are available on our website. Again, you will also receive this in the recording and the PowerPoint slides within about 24 hours. And so you'll be able to click through. And so if you want to know more about how your business can show up in search, especially in this day and age, we've got a webinar that talks about that. And if you haven't started your journey into SEO and maybe you need to get more buy-in, we've got this webinar that Rich, I think you were actually a part of some time ago, that talks about how to pitch SEO to your CEO or to your stakeholders when you've got to get that buy-in. And so we've got resources that are available there to support you. And then don't forget, we've got the SEO audit. If you didn't do it, the link is in the chat. That's another thing that you can do today. Get some data, results, take that back to your team and say, here's our grade right now. What do we need to do? And know that we are here to support you in implementing proper SEO strategies and digital advertising and general strategies across the board. So thank you everybody for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you on our next webinar.